Hey, tonight's guest is Dr. Janet Lingren, who's going to discuss dreams with all of us. Why do we have them? And what they mean. See you in about 5 minutes. Grab your popcorn and snacks. Find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust. Turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Good afternoon, everybody. Hang on, you know what? I forgot my light. Look at that. I got ahead of myself. Boy, that's scary when I don't have my light on. Anyway, good afternoon. Welcome to the show. My name is Charlotte. I'm going to be your host for the next hour or so. I'm also the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team based out of Sacramento, California. We're 45 strong up and down the state of California, meaning if you think you have a paranormal issue, then we can get to you, okay? Because I've got someone practically in every county. And if we're not in every county, then, we're 2-3 counties away and we can get to you. It's not a problem. All we do is free of charge. We're here to educate about the paranormal and all that good stuff. Anyway, I want to welcome you to the show tonight. If you're watching from YouTube, please press that subscribe button, and that subscribe button is down in the bottom right-hand corner. It's the little ghost with the magnifying glass and the Sherlock Holmes hat on. We've got close to 250 videos on there, I think, going back for quite a ways. And if you look at the videos, there's differing topics on there. A lot of differing topics. Anyway, our guest tonight is Dr. Janet Lingren, psychologist, and she's going to be talking about dreams. And I'm probably going to have to do a dial-up because I think there was a little confusion about if she was going to come on with a link or what. I haven't seen her come to the green room yet, so I want to go ahead and dial her up in a minute here. But anyway, I know I have dreams. Everybody has dreams. We may not remember them, but we have them. I had and it's funny because I could be watching something on TV, and it influences whatever dream I have. And I had a couple of dreams about my mother this past week, and I know it was related to something I saw on TV or on TikTok. Because down that rabbit hole for TikTok, and you're looking at different things on TikTok, and next thing I know, I've got this weird dream about my mother. And it kind of shook me at first, and I thought, well, why am I having this dream suddenly? And then it dawned on me like 20 minutes later that I was dreaming about her because of this thing I saw. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and call her up and see if we get this show going. If not, we'll have a nice ghost chat tonight. Live radio, you never know what's going to happen, huh? Okay, here we go. Still need some dialing music. This isn't good. Must be Thursday. Okay. Give me a minute here. I want to check another phone number here for her. We were talking up until this morning about her being on, so let's see. It must be for in-person. Okay. I want to shoot her another link to StreamYard real quick, and just bear with me. And, okay. Just give me a few minutes. So, for those of you that are listening, just in case, if you have any questions about ghost hunting, anything like that you want to share with me, that would be great, because maybe, this maybe this isn't happening today. And so maybe we can talk about ghosts. I can talk about ghosts. I'm good at talking about ghosts. Let me shoot another email over there and see what's happening. Okay. Let's see. Just bear with me. Let's see. Okay. Good thing I type fast. Okay. All right, let me do that. Okay. So while we're waiting, we can talk about ghosts here. Hello, everybody. Hello, Colleen, Jerry, Maurice's in the house. We're seeing what's going on with Janet right now. But anyway, while we're waiting, waiting for an answer. Interesting. Let's talk about ghosts. If you guys don't have TikTok, I don't encourage. I mean, if you're not into TikTok or anything like that, that's fine. But I'm going to be telling ghost stories on TikTok starting tomorrow. We're going to start our series with "Take My Ghost to Ghost Country" presentation that I do, and I'm going to be doing those over at TikTok. And the first one we're going to cover, and I'm going to give you guys a heads up because you're over here listening all the time, right? Is the Woodland Opera House. That's going to be the first one, and I'm putting that together tonight so I can present that for TikTok tomorrow. We're going to look at different haunted locations around the Northern California area, starting, like I said, with Ghost to Gold Country, which would be Sacramento, Coloma, where they discovered gold, Placerville, Old Hangtown, different places like that, Downeyville, places like that. And I'm going to be telling, short ghost stories that you guys can follow over there. And I'm real excited about doing it. In fact, we've investigated a lot of these places, so I already have the photos for them anyway, so I can just throw the photos in and all that. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And if you haven't already, and if you're already on TikTok and you haven't already joined up to follow us on TikTok, you should, because we're going to be putting some really cool stuff over there. I'm just getting used to the formatting, the short videos, and how long should the videos be, and yada, 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 and trying to balance all that out. But it's starting to come along. We've got about 7 or 8 videos up over there already. I'll take these interviews that I do and then make short videos out of them and then put them up there to get people over to our website and all that stuff. And I see Janet's coming in, so we'll just take our time. And so I'm excited. So if you guys, I know a lot of people are kind of leery about TikTok, and that's your prerogative. That's fine. There's a lot of people leery about Facebook, and but that's okay, because I'm going to be posting some of these videos as well over on Instagram, because I do have an Instagram over there, and in my Instagram, if you're interested in following me on Instagram, it's Ghosty Gal. In fact, let me double check, make sure I'm Ghosty Gal. I think it's Ghosty Gal without any numbers behind it. Let me take a look at my Instagram. I think Janet's ready to go, so let me get over there. So give me a minute, and let's see. Make sure I'm Ghosty Gal. Looks like. See, it's hard because I got so many handles. Let's see who I am. I'm Ghosty Gal. Just look for Ghosty Gal. But my photo was on there. So yeah, it's Ghosty Gal. I've got so many handles. It gets confusing after a while. You get these handles going, and wow. Okay, let me see if Janet's available so we can get started here. Click.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How do I get my picture up there next to you?
I think you got to turn your camera on.
I thought my camera was on.
Let's see what's going on here. Let me get in here a little bit, take a look around. Let's see. See if I have to do anything on my end to turn that camera on. Yeah, I don't know. Your camera should be on.
Yes.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I don't know. At least I got you on audio.
It says everyone can see and hear you.
Oh, I love live radio. The other night we had a guest come on, the poor guy. Every time he came on to talk, it sounded like he was on helium. It was crazy. And not only helium, but talking in fast forward, like a tape being, wound fast. The poor guy.
There I am.
There we go. I finally ended up calling the guy on the phone. It was bad. He'd get on there. I thought it was my end, and I'm trying to push my buttons and stuff to figure out what the hell's wrong with the guy, and it just turns out that there's just a glitch in the system. Good to have you. Oh, I lost her. She was there and we lost her. We're getting there. She's getting there. Here she comes. Let me get you back in. I'm coming. Whoops. Add the screen. There we go.
There.
You
And I
disappeared
want to
like
move
the
my
Mario, right down, that chasm they go into. Welcome.
I'm adjusting my camera.
Take your time. We're good. We're patient here. Everybody's having dinner and stuff, so they're kicked back with their cocktail or whatever it is they're doing. But anyway, while she gets adjusted, oh, we're back. Well, we're almost back. While she gets adjusted, it's like I'm old, so these trends, these media trends. I used to be. It's funny because you get to a certain age and you're ahead of the pack at some point, and when doing live stuff on Facebook first started, I was ahead of the pack. But now I'm finding myself like trying to catch up with stuff like TikTok. So I'm on a learning curve again, but I'm getting there. I'm good. I like being techie, so I'm getting there. All right, let's get her back in. We're back.
There we go.
Very
Yes.
good. Very good. Tell me about you, your background, all that good stuff.
Oh, well, I'm speaking to you from the family room in my home in Lincoln, Nebraska. I've been in Nebraska since 1980.
Mm-hmm.
I was born and raised in eastern Iowa, went to Iowa State College in Ames, Iowa, where I met my husband in the lobby at the Collegiate Methodist Church. He walked into the room and the song Some Enchanted Evening went off in my head.
Wow.
And not everybody knows the words, but it's some enchanted evening, you will see a stranger, and somehow you will know you will see him again and again. And I went to bed that night thinking, he's the kind of guy I want to marry. And that was in July 1957, and we were married in June the next year, and had a family quickly. Diana was born in the end of April that year. Mark was born next, and then Bruce, and then Sharon. And so a big part of my own growth process came out of the opportunity and the challenge of having essentially 4 babies all at once.
Mm-hmm.
Diana was still 3 when Sharon was born. And I couldn't wait to grow up and have my own babies. And so that was my plan, and it worked beautifully. We had 4 children, which is what we wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I was fortunate that I already had a bachelor's degree in home ec, and I'd had child development classes. I'd had some journalism classes. I taught home ec for almost a year. But then I found myself very much involved in child development. And when we moved to Idaho after my husband got his doctorate in sociology, I pursued a master's degree. And I had hoped for a master's degree in child development, but that wasn't available at Idaho State University. So I got a master's in elementary education. So I continued my career as an educator, and then eventually got into teaching child development for a federal project. And at some point in the process, we were going to Florida for my husband to do a 6-month sabbatical at Florida State University. And I said, okay, God, what do I do now? And I heard the voice in my head that said, go to Tom Edgar and ask if he will sponsor you for the doctoral program in guidance and counseling. And sure enough, I followed that guidance, and Tom Edgar had a vacancy in his sponsorship and took me on. And in 1979, I got my doctorate in guidance and counseling with the intention of probably doing parent education or working with the school system. But I ended up in private practice. So I've had over 40 years as a psychotherapist. I'm no longer licensed because I had a dream during my 70th year, my 80th year, that it was time to stop taking classes. And I needed continuing education to renew my license. And I thought, I'm 80 years old. I don't need to do this anymore. So I did not renew the license, but I have continued to work with dreams, and I see a few people as a coach. And I like working with people who I've known over the years who come back for therapy, and especially working with people and their dreams. Now, there's another history that goes along with the dream work. When I was working on my doctorate, there was a fellow there who was a member of the cadre of those of us working on the doctorate in guidance and counseling. He was there from Zurich, Switzerland. He'd had 4 years at the Jungian Institute in Zurich, Switzerland. He was in Pocatello, Idaho, because of a dream. And I was one of the few people in Pocatello, Idaho, who was seriously interested in dreams, looking at what they might be telling us about ourselves and about the world. And I began to meet with Bob French once a week to work on my own dreams. And then I had a dream that he interpreted to mean that I was to go into a training analysis with him, which I did for a period of time. And then I had another dream that indicated to him that I was done with dream work in Jungian psychology. So he wouldn't see me again, but his wife would. And she had training at the Jungian Institute. So it continued. And there are stories along the way that go with every step of my life, often including dream images that guide me into the next step. And so working with dreams for well over 40 years at this point, going on 45 years, has been one of the most profound experiences of my life. And I have been more disciplined about my work with dreams, the study of dreams, recording dreams, than anything else. Discipline is not my strong suit, but I've been able to call on that as a resource for my dream work. And I think I'm in a much better place in my life because I have been responding to guidance from dreams all these years. I am absolutely convinced that there is a wisdom at work in us that knows more than what we consciously know. And paying attention to our dreams is a primary source of that information. There are other things like hunches and your gut feeling and just a sense of knowing something that are valuable as well. But I think the clear path is working with dreams.
Can I ask you a question about that too while you were speaking? Some psychics, people that claim to be psychic, do get their visions in dreams. Do you think there's a link there, or do you think it's a purely scientific thing?
I don't know that it's very scientific. I have to be careful how I word that.
Sure.
I'm sure there's a science behind it, but I think there's so much we don't understand.
Okay.
And I don't claim to be psychic.
Right.
But I am an intuitive, and there are some things that I will know that I don't have an explanation for it. Some things come to me intuitively. I often noticed when working with a client, a question would come from inside of me. I mean, this is the left side of my head. It would be out here about 4 inches from the left side of my head, I would hear a voice. The question might be, ask if this person experienced sexual abuse in childhood. And my response is, he or she hasn't said anything that would lead me to believe that. But when I listened to that voice and asked the question, it opened the floodgates. So something in me knew.
Sure.
But I didn't know it consciously. Okay. And I don't know how that happens. But I wouldn't claim to be a psychic.
You sound like somebody I had on my team a while back, Sabrina, who was a psychic. And she says, I don't know how I get these things. They just come to me. And sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, but they just come to me. And that was the most honest response, next to yours now, that I've ever gotten from a psychic. Because usually they're very, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing. It's not a problem, blah, blah, blah. That's the attitude they have. Well, not all of them are like that, because I have ones on my team that are good too. But to hear that honest of an explanation of you hearing that voice, that little voice, that's perfect. Maybe it's that thing my mom said when I was growing up. What was it? On the left side you have an angel, on the right side the devil's over there. That's what my mother always told me. And they're having this battle in your ears, to try and keep you on track.
Okay, well, I hadn't heard that before, but
yeah, that's what my mother used to say.
I pay attention when the message comes from right here. I pay attention when it's a cognitive process, but I distinguish between the two.
Okay.
And if I'm trying to work on a problem in my own life or make a decision, say about a trip or something like that, if I have fears and concerns, I'll ask myself, where is this coming from? If it's coming from out here, I have a different response than if it's coming from here.
Sure, absolutely. Why do we dream?
Well, the people who research the dreaming phenomenon would say it's necessary for our physical health and our mental health, that the brain is processing certain chemicals as you sleep and maybe getting rid of toxins or the debris of the previous day. I don't question that. And I value what they can tell us from their scientific research. But I don't think anybody is ever going to be able to do research on the meaning of the dreams. And I think it's more like an inner guidance system that we each come in with, that is available to us for the entire lifespan, leads us through the different developmental stages, and eventually to our death and our transition into the world of spirit. And that can't be researched, and I don't think we're going to find certain cellular structures in the brain or the body that explain that. I think that is part of soul or spirit, whatever terminology you're comfortable with.
That's absolutely interesting, to look at it that way. What creates bad dreams? Is it triggers during the day? Like I was saying before you came on, I remember I was watching, my mother had Alzheimer's, and I was watching some of these videos on TikTok, and they were looking for this car that had gone missing with this woman, and it turns out she had Alzheimer's and ended up in this lake. So then I had these dreams about my mother, right away. And is there a link between, what we see during the day to our dreams?
Oh, I think there is, definitely. If I'm going to be working with someone on an interpretation of a dream, I want to know what's going on in their everyday life. And it will be reflected in the dreams, because in the example you gave, you have this question. And so the dream maker at work in you is trying to figure out how to respond to your question. So I think definitely there is a connection, but I also think there's much more to it than that.
Mm-hmm.
Carl Jung is the person we give credit to for identifying what he called the collective unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
And the collective unconscious is like the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows the depths of the ocean? Who knows what's out there? And we're in our little boat or yacht out there on the ocean. You don't really want to be in a rowboat out there on the ocean. Um, Hopefully, something substantial that will sustain you as you encounter the collective unconscious. And in psychological terminology, we would refer to that as the ego. You
Mm-hmm.
need an ego that is strong enough to deal with and tolerate and integrate what comes up from that ocean representing the collective unconscious. So we can tap into things from the past. We have dreams, as you know, that connect with what's going on today. And we have dreams that will tell us about the future. I had a recent dream, just days ago, that I find very, very reassuring in terms of the future. In the dream, I am with my husband, Herb Lingren, who died suddenly almost 24 years ago, but has been a very comforting presence in my dreams. Herb and I are on our way to the symphony in downtown Lincoln. We're going to the concert hall. We get to the concert hall, and I thought I had called in a reservation for 2 tickets, and I had not done that. And there wasn't even a single seat left for the Lincoln Symphony performance. And all of this was happening during the 22-23 season of the Lincoln Symphony. So sometime later this fall, although it had more of a feeling of next winter,
Mm-hmm.
into 2023. And so to dream about something as normal as going to the symphony again in 2023 was very reassuring. There is a future, and it will include live music. And during the whole COVID shutdown, what I have missed tremendously is the experience of being in an auditorium or a coffee shop
Right.
for live music.
Right.
So that was a very reassuring dream
Mm-hmm.
that tells me there's hope for the future.
Sure. Sure. The one thing I liked about COVID, I'm not saying I liked about COVID, but the people, the performers and stuff during that shutdown was that they shifted to free shows. They shifted to be online so people can enjoy their music. And I thought
Mm-hmm.
that was great. I mean, I would attend like 4 or 5 a week, just listening to them sing and stuff. And
Yes,
they didn't have to do it, but they did, and it was nice. So they got their work in, but still people didn't feel that depressed because they could still see them. But I agree with you that there's hope for the future. There's hope that we're all going to be out there, functioning.
yes. Now you had asked about, where do the nightmares come from? Is
Yes.
that your question? I think we're more likely to have nightmares um, when there are problem areas in our life that need attention.
Okay.
And that's going to be very individual. We also will have um, the dream that we might call a bad dream or a scary dream that reflects problems in the larger culture because we are so connected to that. And I should say that a basic premise of working with dreams is understanding that the images in the dreams are analogies
Mm-hmm.
for life. And so we need to understand the analogies, the mythology, the symbolism, our personal associations are all connected with that. And so whatever challenges we have in our life, whatever unresolved issues from the past, the dream maker is going to try to move us in the direction of addressing those problems.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense.
I had a recent dream that felt kind of like a nightmare, but as I describe it, you wouldn't experience it in the same way as I would. But in the dream, I'm in the office working with the client and the doorbell rings and someone else shows up and I have double booked clients and wasn't aware of it. And then I think there's a phone call from someone who expects me to be available on the phone. At the same time, I've got someone in the office and someone from the front door. I woke up in a panic. For me, that was like a nightmare. And I thought, okay, what's going on that I haven't paid attention to? And as it turned out, I had double booked myself twice.
Wow.
And I had the calendar at the kitchen table. I was back in the office and I thought, as soon as I get to the kitchen table, I'll write that down in the calendar. And I didn't do it. So something in me knew that and needed to remind me so that I could avoid the terribly uncomfortable situation of having two people show up at the same time. And I have to admit then that I made a mistake or I was negligent.
Is it easy? I mean, for a person that writes their dreams down when they wake up in the morning, is it easy for somebody to go back and analyze what's in that dream? Or should they go to someone like you to help?
I think once you learn some of the basic approaches to working with dreams, that you can get a lot from your own individual efforts and introspection. But it really helps to have someone work with you on a dream to get the basic format. Now, I know that you went to my website, janlingren.com, and I have a segment in there when I give basic principles of Jungian psychology and basic principles of working with the dream. So anybody could go to that and read through that and have some ideas about how to approach their own dreams. I will also say that for many people, just the act of writing down a dream may trigger an insight. So that as they're writing or typing it, they're thinking, well, what if, or now I remember, or maybe that's connected with whatever comes up for them. And you want to pay attention to those hints. And you're picking up on clues from the dream. Now, I have also discovered that when I start working with someone to interpret a dream, my responsibility is to help them identify the people and places and animals and objects in the dream, what's happening, what do they do about it, is there a resolution? But as I say, well, what do you think of when you think of, say, the intersection of 17th and South Street in Lincoln, Nebraska? What comes to mind? And the person starts talking about their connection with that symbol from their dream. They're telling me, and they're bringing to their own awareness what the dream is really about. And so talking about the dream and answering the question, what do you think of when you think of that setting, that person, that animal, that object? If you're working with it just by yourself, you could be writing that down or maybe recording it somehow and then go back and reflect. So often when people are giving me their associations to the dream images, they're not listening to what they're saying. If I point that out, do you realize what you just said?
Mm-hmm.
I think you're telling us now what that dream is all about.
Okay.
And only the dreamer knows if we're on the right track. But when when you are on the right track in terms of working with the dream, it's they have what we call an aha experience.
Okay.
It's one of those, oh Lord, does it have to be that? Or no, there isn't a part of me like that person. Why would the dream come to me at this time?
Mm-hmm.
And something in you knows. And so it's about digging for gold,
Mm-hmm.
working through all kinds of um, debris to try to find the gem.
Okay.
And you know when you found it.
Okay. I wanted to ask you, what is the difference between someone that has studied Sigmund Freud as opposed to being a Jungian as you are?
A Jungian.
Jungian, I'm sorry. Jungian. Sorry about that.
Well, it's an easy mistake because it's a German pronunciation of the name as opposed to an English pronunciation. Um, if I was consistent with my use of the language, I would be Janet, but I am Janet, and I study Jungian psychology. um, well, Freud was the first one to really draw attention to the world of dreams and their possible interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
And Freud was also, I'm not going to say the first one, but certainly a major influence in terms of looking at the, the sexual inhibitions and fears and concerns of the Victorian age. And so, what is often characteristic of looking at dreams from a Freudian perspective is everything goes back to the sexual issues
Okay.
that the client has brought to the session with the therapist. And I can illustrate with an example. If my Uncle Harry is in a dream,
Mm-hmm.
then and I'm working at it from a Jungian perspective, I question myself, or my dream partner would question me. What do
Mm-hmm.
you think of when you think of Uncle Harry? The first thing that came to my mind when we were doing this in the three-dimensional world was a Sunday afternoon when I was maybe 4 years old, and my sisters and my parents and I were at Grandma and Grandpa's house. Uncle Harry lived with his parents late into life, and we were at the back stoop or the back steps as you would go into the porch that was the entry into the kitchen of their house. And he was churning an ice cream maker.
Okay.
So we were there on that Sunday afternoon for homemade ice cream. And I remember being fascinated with the ice cream maker, and he's turning the crank, and you just have to turn and turn and turn so that the ice will cool the milk and egg combination and with sugar in this tall canister. It's also fascinating for me. So my dream partner says, and what else do you think of when you think of Uncle Harry? Well, Uncle Harry had 5 nieces, me, my 2 sisters, and my 2 cousins, and he just loved us dearly. He never had his own children. We used to argue about who was going to marry Uncle Harry when they grew up because we all loved Uncle Harry. So my dream partner says, what do you think of when you think of Uncle Harry? And I think of him living with my grandfather after Grandma died. He continued to live with my grandfather until my grandfather died, and was married in his 50s after both of his parents had died. So what do you think of when you think of Uncle Harry? Well, I think of being at his wedding with my husband and my 4 children. So I can go on and on. Uncle Harry never left home. He became an independent adult, so to speak, after his parents both died. And that was the thing that tied in with the dream I was working on, was that Uncle Harry never left home. But I didn't know it until I got to that.
Right.
Now, if I was working from a Freudian perspective, it would go something like this. What do you think of when you think of Uncle Harry? Well, I think of that Sunday afternoon when I was about 4, and we get to Grandma and Grandpa's, and Uncle Harry is out there working on turning the ice cream maker on the steps that go into the house. So what do you think of Uncle Harry? Well, no, it'd be, where does that lead you? Instead of, what do you think of when you think of Uncle Harry?
Right.
The next association is homemade ice cream, we'll say. What do I think of when I think of homemade ice cream? I think of when Herb and I and the little kids were all living in Ames, Iowa, when he went back, he could go back to graduate school. We would often make homemade ice cream, and we would invite friends over. So what else do you think of? Well, I think of the Sunday where, as we're leaving church, Herb says, why don't we make homemade ice cream this afternoon? And I say, okay, we have to stop and buy the ingredients. And he started started to invite people to our house for homemade ice cream. So within a matter of 3 hours, we had 32 people at our house for homemade ice cream. See, and with my associations, I'm getting further and further away from Uncle Harry.
Right.
So what does that association bring me to? Well, I'll eventually get to something that is an unresolved issue for me. Maybe it's that Herb would make these plans spur of the moment, and then I have to figure out, okay, I've got to clean house, I've got to get the food, I've got to make the ice cream mix. Do I have all the ingredients? Why do you do this to me? Give me some warning, or let's plan ahead. So maybe that's what I'd end up dealing with in the session, but it's not connected with my dream, and it's not connected with Uncle Harry. It's only the dream is an avenue to get to a deeper problem.
Okay.
So with Jungian psychology, we stick with the image until we get the aha.
Okay. Which brings me to my next question. If somebody's having a reoccurring dream,
yes,
is that because, like you say, the dream maker feels that you haven't come to that aha moment?
it's a good way to put it. Yeah. The reoccurring dream often is trying to point out a problem the dreamer is unaware of. And that is why you continue to have that dream. And sometimes it could be a menacing reality that you're not dealing with, but not always. A very common reoccurring dream is that the dreamer is back in school. They didn't even know they were enrolled in the class, and now it's time to take the test. And they wake up in a panic because they're not prepared for the test. And what I've learned over time is that's a very common dream for people when they are facing something new in their life.
Okay.
And if you think of life as kind of like the experience of going to school and learning lessons, there are opportunities for new growth, but you're not always prepared for the next stage or the next development.
Mm-hmm.
And so the unconscious at work in you, the personal unconscious, wants to help you prepare for or adjust to or make the changes that are necessary from time to time. And so if I have that kind of a dream, I'm enrolled in classes, whether we're talking about high school or college, continuing ed classes, and it's time for the test, and I didn't even know that I had signed up. I figured, okay, there's some challenge coming.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not quite prepared for it, but this dream is giving me the alert.
Okay.
Life is going to throw you another surprise. And actually, you've been in class all this time, so you can probably handle it. But it may come as a surprise when it happens.
Interesting. And what about falling dreams? I seem to have them when I'm either like driving by the ocean, I'm on this real tall cliff or something, and then I go off. And the next thing you know, I'm always falling towards the ocean.
How interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you think of when you think of the ocean?
I don't swim well. That's one thing. I know I don't swim well. I learned to dog paddle. That was the extent of it, and swim underwater.
Okay.
So I do have this fear of deep water. And I don't know. It's always, since I was a kid, I've had these dreams where I'm falling into the ocean, and I don't know. Maybe because I'm always taking on stuff that's way, that's out of my pay grade. If you can put it that way, because I like a good challenge. So maybe that's what it is. Get in that ocean and swim because you're underwater, right? I mean, you're trying to deal with it.
So, what do you think of when you think of the ocean?
I used to go fishing all the time when I was young and stuff. I love being by the ocean. In fact, I love the whole beach scene and all that. It's always calming for me to hear the waves and everything.
Okay. And what else do you think of when you think of the ocean?
Sinking, sinking down.
Because
the water's so deep and I can't swim to get back up.
Okay.
So
you're saying a lot about it yourself as you respond to that question.
Okay.
I'm going to give you some ideas from universal symbolism, but keep in mind your own associations are the most important here. The ocean can represent the collective unconscious, as I said earlier. The ocean is full of an unknown reality. The depths cannot really be understood, or we can't go to the deepest levels without assistance, without special equipment. You don't want to go play in the ocean by yourself because an undercurrent might pull you in and pull you down.
Okay.
So you don't get into the ocean by yourself. And you don't play around at the edges if you don't know what you're doing.
Okay.
And so often interacting with the unconscious is like that. At the same time, you can look at your dream and say, well, there is a reason to be afraid of heights. There's a reason to stay away from the edge of the cliff. There are some very practical aspects connected with that. And you want to pay attention to the practicality. Don't get too close to the edge. So maybe you are one of those people who is always looking for the cutting edge and wanting to try the new thing.
Yep.
It's still appropriate to be careful because you could get into something. You could get in over your head, for example.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense.
And a lot of people will dream about falling if they have an elevated sense of their own worth or value or competence. And so it's important to pay attention to those kinds of dreams, and then to discern, is that an inflation dream? If it's an inflation dream, the dream is saying you think of yourself as superior to other people, as if you can look down on them at the ground level dealing with reality, but you don't have to deal with that reality. You have, superior knowledge or skills or more money or whatever, so that you don't have to live your life at that level. That's a dangerous attitude. You want to be grounded, both feet firmly on the ground, or maybe one foot in the world of spiritual reality, but the other foot firmly planted on the ground. Because to see yourself floating above others is either dangerous or not realistic.
Okay.
So the dreams will compensate for an attitude of superiority with a dream like that.
Okay. Very interesting.
Oh, it is fascinating. There is no end to the remarkable information and that comes to us through the dream images.
It's incredible.
I'll never learn it all. None of us ever will.
It's incredible. And then you get dreams like after my mother died, she came to me in dreams.
Yeah.
I mean, is that because of my need to want to see her again? Or is that because I know that happens to a lot of people? Or is that just because maybe she's trying somehow to come through my subconscious to say, hey, I'm cool. It's okay.
I think both are true, Charlotte.
Okay.
That you need to be reassured. And because she, in my estimation, is on the other side, her soul is eternal. That hasn't changed. She can still come to you through that medium of spirit. My husband was not one to take dreams all that seriously. He would say, you have to remember that I am a scientist. He respected my appreciation for the whole phenomenon of dreams and dream interpretation. And he respected my work in that area, but it wasn't for him. He died suddenly, as I said, almost 24 years ago. And then he was a remarkable presence in my dreams. I think he must be surprised on the other side. And it was as if he showed up in my dreams as I was going through different stages of the grief process. And it was most helpful. I am so appreciative of that. But I also will say, I will also say that having done serious work with dreams for almost 45 years, the greatest benefit to me personally, I think, is that people I love who are no longer in the third dimensional world will come to me in my dreams. And so I know the relationship doesn't end with death. And I think it is so important for us as individuals to be aware of that, to claim it, to allow that to be part of our reality. Grief is such a labor and such a painful phenomenon in life. And if you care about people, you're going to deal with grief. And the older I am, the longer I live, the more I realize that so much of life is about learning to live with loss. I don't get over the loss of my husband or the loss of my son, Bruce, which was 11 years ago. I'm not ever going to get over it, but it serves me well if I can learn to live with that loss successfully or appropriately, or to serve myself and my family. I need to learn to live with that loss because there are others who are watching. How is mom handling this, or how is Jan handling this? And as they see how I've dealt with it, they can say, well, then it's okay she's okay. So now I can deal with my own grief.
Makes a lot of sense. I remember the day after my mother died and getting up real early in the morning and watching the sunrise. And I thought, she's not here. I can kind of still feel her here, but the sun keeps rising.
Yes, every day.
It's always going to rise. The wind is going to blow. This is what's going to happen. I have to learn to be in a world without her here, even though she was coming to me in my dreams, and I guess to reassure me, like you say, that it's okay and I'll always be here to talk to you and stuff. But you have to come to that realization that they're not there for you all the time.
They're not there in a three-dimensional sense. No.
Yeah.
And as you're dealing with grief, one of the things that I'm very aware of is how, the sun comes up every day. And, 2 weeks after your loss, everyone else is getting on with their life.
Yeah.
But your life has changed. Your life may have been turned upside down, and you're going to wake up to that harsh reality every day of your life and make adjustments accordingly. And it seems overwhelming at the time.
Yes.
And so it is really important for our own benefit to be able to shift into a mindset that allows for the relationship to continue through the spiritual dimension. And the dreams are so beneficial in that regard.
Well, I remember, I took care of both my mom and dad. And so that was a good 10-year span, of taking care of people. And I remember when the day after my mother died, because she died, she was the second one to go, I thought about that lottery commercial. And I don't know if it's a terrible thing to think about, but the guy that wins the millions and goes to the store and he looks and he says, "Oh, I can buy all this cheese."
I don't.
Yeah,
I haven't seen that.
He says, I could buy all this cheese, right? And he was like relieved that he could buy all this cheese. And it was a weird feeling because on one hand, you're so used to taking care of somebody, but on the other hand, you're free to do what you want.
Oh, it's like a double-edged sword.
And that's why I felt when I walked out, I finally went to the store for the first time without having to worry about somebody watching her or whatever. I thought, I could buy all this cheese, because the responsibility is not there anymore. But it's a double-edged sword because then you're horribly lonely and all this is going on because you're so used to living a certain way.
Yes, you have to essentially start over when you lose someone that is so central to your life.
Oh, yeah. It was a huge adjustment.
And I have a confession.
Okay.
A few people may have heard me say this, so you're not the first one. But
I'm not. No, go ahead.
No. We had a very short window where we knew my husband was dying. I got to the hospital at 20 minutes after 12 at midnight. And about 8 o'clock the next morning, I knew deep in my soul that he was not coming back, even though there were medical people telling us there was still that hope. And it occurred to me, I don't ever have to watch another football game in my life unless I want to.
Right.
And we live in Nebraska, and going to the football games at the university was a privilege, and Herb loved it. And I went along for the food. And I understood enough of the game that I could follow the game and all of that. But I'm really not a football fan
Uh-huh.
unless somebody I know is on the team. And then I'm interested. Uh, so, I mean, that was my husband is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, he's gone. And I don't ever have to go to another football game.
Yeah.
You know, there's always the other side of it.
I went through that with Hollywood musicals. I love Hollywood musicals. Love them to death. But I had 5 solid years of watching because that's what would make her happy. That she loved that stuff. So we
Oh,
would watch them together, and we would watch King and I and all these other. And now I haven't seen a Hollywood musical in 3 years.
that's not surprising, is it?
No, no, it's not. Even though I mean, it wouldn't bother me to see one, but that those memories will come back. It's not like I'm avoiding them. It's just I just don't have the desire. I'm burnt out on Hollywood musicals, I think.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So what about somebody, because I know everybody has similar dreams. I mean, like, you have your falling dreams. You have the ones where somebody's chasing you. What are those about?
Well, again, we have to go back to the individual dreamer.
Mm-hmm.
What is the setting? The setting of a dream is really very important. And you want to start your interpretation by focusing in on the setting. If you're at the corner of 17th and South Street in Lincoln, Nebraska, that is going to have a certain connotation. If you're out in the desert or the wild or in the forest or on a busy city street, it sets the stage for the chase.
Mm-hmm.
And we can say some very general things like, is there something you've been avoiding and it is now making demands of you? Is there somebody in your life that you've been avoiding and that person is now making demands of you?
Mm-hmm.
Or for your own benefit, you need to turn around and confront that person or that situation and try to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
But there is also the possibility that, let's say, you're a woman in a dark alley and you're being pursued by 7 men
Mm-hmm.
in masks to make it even more scary.
That's spooky.
Yes, with clubs or guns or something
That's
like
really
that.
spooky. Ooh, okay.
That kind of a dream, we'd be looking at the fact that we have 7 men and 1 female.
Right.
And we need to have a balance in our lives of feminine function because you're given the body of a female and masculine function, which is the contrasexual side of your psyche back there in the unconscious. And so anytime the balance is off, you could have scary dreams like that.
Okay.
I remember someone's dream where she was in a boat with 7 men, and things are not going well at all. And we looked at her life, and given the body of a female and identifying as a female, she wasn't able to live into what we traditionally consider feminine function. She had to find ways to live into the feminine function instead of being so concerned with the world of work and being the provider and being the protector, that there was no room for the softer side of life. So she had to find a balance. And I'm sure I've worked with people where it was just the opposite. Those identifying as male are overwhelmed with feminine function, and they need to find the balance. If you look at the whole phenomenon of a lifetime And the various things that can come up in your dreams over a period of 70, 80, 90 years, it really is an attempt on the part of the inner wisdom or the dream maker to create balance in your life. Balance is a key word in terms of working with our individual psychology.
Very interesting. This stuff is all interesting to me.
Good.
I find it all absolutely fascinating. Now,
Well,
should people make it a habit of when they first thing they get up in the morning, or say they wake up during the night after dreaming, to write the stuff, to write the dream down?
That's a good way to start.
Mm-hmm.
Keep a notebook by your bed, or a recorder of some sort by your bed, so you could speak into a recorder. Most people are not going to get up in the middle of the night and write down a whole dream. But if you can write down a few key words,
Mm-hmm.
your memory will be triggered when you do wake up. So often it's easy to just lose the entire dream.
Right.
And if I wake up with the awareness of a dream, I have trained myself to rehearse the dream before I get out of bed.
Mm-hmm.
Because I discovered that if I don't do that, the minute my feet hit the floor, the dream is gone. But if I've rehearsed it before I get out of bed, then I can write it down, maybe right away or within a few days. If I go more than, let's say I can carry 3 dreams in my memory and work on them through the day as I'm thinking about my life and have the opportunity for introspection.
Mm-hmm.
But if I don't write them down, I don't remember more dreams.
Okay.
So I need to write them down so more dreams will surface in my memory to help me keep moving forward. Now, the researchers tell us that the sleep cycle is roughly 90 minutes. And each one of us goes through a number of sleep cycles every night. And the most vivid dreaming will be toward the end of each of those sleep cycles. And the minutes of REM sleep, the rapid eye movement sleep, tend to increase the longer you sleep. So maybe at the end of the first cycle, there are 2 minutes of REM sleep. You get to the end of the next cycle, and maybe it's 3 minutes of REM sleep.
Mm-hmm.
You get to the end of, say, the 4th cycle or the 5th cycle, you're going to have longer periods of dreaming. Now, I might have 5 minutes of REM sleep, but maybe I dreamed a book in that 5 minutes. There's no correlation with time in that regard. So we're most likely to remember the dreams from later in the sleep cycle. But sometimes the best images are coming from the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
I remember waking up sometimes with dreams thinking, oh, I really wasn't supposed to wake up in the middle of this. But I did. And the images are startling or amazing or really beneficial. So I want to remember it. And that's where you really need to write something down so you don't forget it. And then, because this goes on every 90 minutes as we're sleeping,
Right.
if you were to record every dream, you would just be overwhelmed.
Okay.
You don't need to record every dream. But if you record, say, 1 dream a week and do some work with that dream, you write it down, you start thinking about what do I think of when I think of that setting,
Mm-hmm.
of those people, what could they represent as a part of my own psyche or what's going on in my life. That's enough. You don't want to approach this in such a way that you're immediately overwhelmed because you remembered three dreams last night, and you might remember more dreams tonight.
Right. Right.
But doing good work with a dream or dream images, because some people just they don't get much at all, but they need to start with what they get.
Mm-hmm.
Doing good work with that is enough to get the ball rolling. And once you get the ball rolling, you want to record the dreams, do the work, get help from someone who knows more about dream work than you do, if possible. And there are lots of ways to learn about working with dreams besides individual counseling. It's something available to all of us. And there will be personal benefits in doing so.
Why are there dreams that we don't remember?
I don't know. But I know that I can't process all the dreams that I remember.
Right. Okay. Okay.
So I may write down 3 dreams and do some serious work with one of them.
Sure.
And I might do serious work with 1 or 2 dreams in a month. But maybe that's enough. And I've integrated this process in my own life so that dream images will come back to me, and I continue to process them over time. Some, like the one where I've double booked or triple booked,
right.
I worked on that. I figured it out. I salvaged the situation before it became terribly uncomfortable, and that was rewarding and meaningful. And other dreams, I'm going to process the rest of my life because they're so filled with symbolism and so powerful or profound or archetypal that I'll never figure it out totally.
Absolutely. This hour has gone by so quickly. I have learned so much from you.
Good.
Oh my, that was fantastic.
Well, I hope your audience has learned some things too.
Real quick question from the chat room.
Yes.
From Jerry says, what are the ways to learn more about dreams?
Well, chances are you could get on YouTube and just type in that question and get some answers. There's a go to the bookstore and the self-help section or the psychology section in the bookstore, whether you're online or in an actual bookstore, and look for something on the interpretation of dreams. I prefer to read and work with Jung's concepts for dream analysis and the psychology of the unconscious, but there are other approaches, and you can get their reading lists. There is an international association for the study of dreams that is not limited to Jungian psychology, but there is also an international association for working with dreams from a Jungian perspective. So you have to do some searching. You have to be willing to do some reading or listening, and take advantage of anything you can uncover there that would help you work with that understanding. Robert Johnson was a Jungian analyst who I think spent much of his life in California. He's no longer in the 3-dimensional world, but he's a good resource for working with dreams. So you could look him up and find some of his books that will help you work with the dream. I suggest that people read Carl Jung's Memories, Dreams, and Reflections to get an idea of how his memory of and working with his own dreams from early in childhood influenced his life. Marian Woodman is another person who has done a lot of work with dreams, no longer with us in the three-dimensional world. But she had a background in literature. And so she would find many parallels in literature to the images that would surface in dreams. Now, for each one of us, it's like a story has been created. And we're looking for what the characters represent and the parallels in everyday life. And there's so many parallels to mythology and fairy tales and literature. In looking at the mythology of today, the whole Star Wars phenomenon and the Harry Potter phenomenon, those are all stories that are telling us truths about life and individual psychology and how to make it and survive in the world. The dreams are another dimension like that, but we can use those stories to help us see parallels. So if you start looking, you'll find that there are resources everywhere. Marie-Louise von Franz was one of my favorite authors because her lectures would be turned into books, and she talked about interpreting fairy tales in the same way you interpret a dream. So she was most helpful for me over the years in learning more and more about the parallels to dream analysis in the world. And it all helps with that understanding.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me.
How can people find you?
I would suggest they go to my website, which is Jan Lingren, all one word. Just a minute. janlingren.com. janlingren.com.
All right, fair enough. Thank you so much.
Don't put a D in the name.
Okay.
L-I-N-G.
No D in the name, guys.
Yes.
All right. I want to thank you for coming on. We hope to get you back on again.
Oh, I hope so. I would love it.
Okay. We're going to do that. We're going to make a plan on it. Okay.
Good.
I'll be shooting you an email. Okay.
Yes.
But you have a great evening. Thank you so much. I learned so much about dreams.
Good. And happy dreams or sweet dreams or remarkable dreams.
There we go. All right, man. Have a good evening. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. That was great. I learned so much, and I hope you did too. Tomorrow, Nancy Matz is going to be on. We've talked about this last week about the past life regressions. You guys are allowed one question. Write the question down, and then she'll figure out how it relates to a past life for you. Okay, one question only. So we're all looking forward to that. That'll be at 6:30 tomorrow, the usual time. If you like the show, share it with 5 people. If you hated the show, share it with 5 of your enemies. We are equal opportunity here at California Haunts Radio. We want to get out to as many people as we possibly can. If you're on YouTube and you were watching the show, please subscribe. We're looking for subscribers. That would be wonderful. Just click on that little ghost down there with the magnifying glass and the Sherlock Holmes hat on, and I'd really appreciate it. If you're on TikTok, come visit us, California Haunts on TikTok. It's not California Haunts Radio, but California Haunts. So check us out over there. Website, CaliforniaHauntsRadio.com. Check us out. No, it's another check us out. Everything seems to be check us out tonight. Check us out at CaliforniaHauntsRadio.com. All our videos are there. And if you have trouble getting to our YouTube page, that's the way to do it. Just click on the video that's on the front of the website and pop right into YouTube. It'll take you right over to YouTube. You can see all of our videos. If you go into the archives, you'll see all of our videos. If you go into the Blog Talk Radio archives, you'll see some of our videos from that, as I'm in the process of transferring a bunch over. We were on Blog Talk for almost 10 years. So there's a lot of stuff over there that I'm trying to transfer over right now. The ticker at the bottom of the page help us bring more exciting and informational guests to this show. The reason why is because California Haunts acts as a nonprofit. and we do not take in any money from anybody. We don't charge. So what we get are donations to keep our cause alive, to go out and help people. So everything you see here, whether it's the mic or it's the computer or it's the lights or cameras, action, whatever we have, plus the equipment for the paranormal team, any lodging we have to do when we're out, it all comes out of my pocket. So if you could find it in your heart to help me out, to help pay the internet bill here and all that good stuff to keep the show going, that would be great. That could be at paypal.me/California Haunts, or if you're uncomfortable with PayPal, Venmo, and then just type in California Haunts. But anyway, I want to thank you all for coming, and I hope you enjoyed our guests as much as I did. And I will see you tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Pacific for Past Life Readings with Nancy. See ya.